Alexander the Great is remembered as one of the most extraordinary figures in human history, not because he lived long, but because in a very short life, he reshaped the ancient world in ways that still echo today. To understand Alexander, it is important to begin long before his conquests, in the environment that shaped him.
Alexander was born in 356 BC in the kingdom of Macedon. It was a land many Greeks considered rough and uncivilized. Macedon sat on the northern edge of the Greek world, close enough to be influenced by Greek culture, yet distant enough to be viewed with suspicion.
His father, Philip II, was not just a king, he was a reformer. Philip transformed Macedon into a military power. He reorganized the army, introduced new tactics, and enforced strict discipline. Under Philip, Macedon became strong enough to challenge the Greek city-states that had long dominated the region. Alexander's mother, Olympias, was very different. She was deeply religious, intense in personality, and fiercely protective of her son. She often spoke of destiny, telling Alexander that he was descended from Achilles, the legendary hero of the Trojan War. These stories were not idle myths in Alexander's mind. They planted the idea that his life was meant for something greater than ordinary rule. From childhood, Alexander lived under constant pressure. He was trained physically for warfare, but he was also educated intellectually. Philip arranged for Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers of the time, to tutor his son. Under Aristotle, Alexander studied philosophy, literature, science, and ethics. He developed a deep admiration for Greek culture and came to believe that it represented the highest form of civilization. As Alexander grew older, his ambition became increasingly clear. Even as a teenager, he showed impatience with limits. At 16, while his father was away on campaign, Alexander was left in charge of Macedon. When a rebellion broke out, he crushed it decisively, and he founded a city in his own name. It was an early sign of how he saw the world. Problems were not negotiated away. They were resolved through action. Despite these successes, tension grew between Alexander and his father. Philip's later marriages created uncertainty about succession. Court politics became dangerous, filled with suspicion and rivalry. Then in 336 BC, everything changed. Philip II was assassinated during a public celebration. The circumstances were shocking, and the aftermath was swift. Alexander was only 20 years old when he was declared king. Youth alone could have made him vulnerable, but Alexander acted quickly. He eliminated rivals, secured the loyalty of the army, and sent a clear message. Macedon would not weaken under his rule. Across Greece, city-states saw Philip's death as an opportunity to break free. Alexander responded with speed and force. He crushed resistance and destroyed Thebes. The destruction was brutal, but calculated. The rest of Greece fell silent. With his position secure, Alexander turned to the ambition that had defined his father's final years: the invasion of the Persian Empire. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with an army far smaller than the Persian forces he would face. What the Macedonians lacked in numbers, they made up for in training and leadership. Alexander led from the front, fighting alongside his men, exposing himself to danger. His early victories shocked the Persian world. At the Battle of the Granicus River, Alexander defeated the Persian satraps. Soon after, he faced King Darius III at the Battle of Issus. Once again, despite being outnumbered, Alexander forced Darius to flee. Darius left behind his family, expecting harsh treatment. Instead, Alexander treated them with respect. It was not simply kindness, it was political. Alexander wanted to be seen not as a destroyer, but as a legitimate ruler. As he moved south, Alexander entered Egypt. There he was welcomed as a liberator. He was declared pharaoh, and he founded the city of Alexandria. During this time, Alexander visited the Oracle of Siwa. According to tradition, He was told that he was the son of a god. Whether he believed this fully is unclear, but the idea of divine destiny clearly reinforced his belief that he was meant to rule far beyond ordinary limits. The decisive confrontation came in 331 BC at the Battle of Gaugamela. This battle would decide the fate of the Persian Empire. Once again, Alexander used superior tactics and personal leadership to overcome a much larger force. Darius fled, and the Persian Empire collapsed. Alexander entered the great Persian cities, Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis. At Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia, the city was burned. Some called it revenge. Others called it a mistake. Whatever the reason, it marked a psychological shift. The conqueror had become the ruler of an empire. After Persia fell, Alexander began to change. He adopted Persian customs, encouraged cultural fusion, and demanded loyalty without question. His soldiers grew uneasy. Tensions reached a tragic peak when Alexander killed Clitus, a man who had once saved his life. Almost immediately, Alexander was overwhelmed with guilt. The campaigns continued east into Central Asia and India. The terrain was brutal, the army exhausted. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River, Alexander won again. But when he demanded more, his soldiers refused. For the first time, Alexander was forced to turn back. The return journey was devastating. Disease, heat, and exhaustion claimed many lives. In 323 BC, while in Babylon, Alexander fell ill. After days of fever, he died at the age of 32. When asked who should inherit his empire, he is said to have replied, "To the strongest." Without him, the empire fractured. Alexander conquered the world, but he could not conquer time. That is why he remains one of history's most complex human figures.